Blog Talk Radio. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Chat with Camille. The title of our show today is How Did an Appalachian Bluegrass Boy Become a Hollywood Star? Our guest today is Randall Franks. He's a former NBC and CBS actor, best known as Officer Randy Goode from The Heat of the Night, multiple Hall of Fame Appalachian entertainer, author of 9 books, syndicated columnist, president of the nonprofit Share American Foundation, encouraging youth in Appalachian music, and former vice mayor and volunteer downtown development authority chairman. We would like for you to support him, or visitors can find specific details and photos about all aspects of Randall's career, and by visiting the store. See his latest releases at Randall, spelled R-A-N-D-A-L-L, Franks, Franks.com. Okay, so I am going to let Randall in right now to our studio. Hi, Randall. How are you?
Hello, Camille.
Welcome to Coffee Chat with me. How are you doing overall?
Oh, I'm very, very blessed. Just looking forward to a wonderful holiday season, and have had a wonderful time of late, doing a lot of work in my local community. So it always blesses me to go out and do things that encourage other folks.
Yes, that was wonderful. And I'd like to get right into asking you some questions. So how do you choose your projects in which to act?
Well, it's always an opportunity. Anytime the phone rings and there's a director or a producer on the other end that wants you to read a script, and I always find it fascinating to learn more about what they're wanting to do with their story or the characters they're developing. So I very intensely read what's being sent to me. I want to know the depth of the character. I want to know what the overall objective of the film that they're creating is in their mind before I decide whether I want to be part of the project. It's a very positive opportunity to portray, whether it's a fictional character or sometimes you're playing an actual person that has lived or is living. But my opportunities always come to me, I think sometimes by providence, and I get the opportunity to look at a role and say, no, that's not quite right for me, and I move on, or yes, I want to do that role. So it's really just an intensive process of reviewing what the writer, producer has created and what exactly they want me to do with it. But I am a little particular I want to generally play roles which I see the folks who have come to know me through the years, whether in acting or music, will enjoy seeing me in. Now, that doesn't mean I won't play a villain every now and again. It just means that I want there to be the appropriate just desserts to that villain's activities.
Oh, excellent. And you have written a book series on encouragers. What inspired you to write it?
Primarily all of the people who made it possible for me to sustain a career and to live in a world where I was given so many opportunities, whether it be in music or acting or writing. There have been individuals, whether they were everyday folks or other actors or entertainers, who've taken the time to give me a bit of themselves. Now, that might just be an encouraging word here and there, or it may have been intensive mentorship in various aspects of what I wanted to do and the experiences that they have had. So in my book series, I focused on all the way from childhood, people who made a difference. And, these span from Bob Hope, who most everybody knows, to Loretta Lynn, to Bill Monroe, to Jim and Jesse McReynolds, the Grand Ole Opry stars, Roy Rogers, Ken Curtis, so many others that have been a part of my life at different points. And, of course, the wonderful people I've worked with in so many films and on so many stages.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then you found success in several musical genres. Which is your favorite?
Well, I would have to say that it's bluegrass music is my favorite overall. That is such a uplifting style of music to me. Coming from Appalachia, we have, in being exposed to the basic instruments of the fiddle and the mandolin, the guitar, the banjo, the bass, the mountain dulcimer, and some of the other instruments that were fairly well entrenched in our culture. Hearing those sounds together, along with the wonderful harmonies that have been created, it uplifts me every time I hear it, and it's always a pleasure to get the opportunity to stand on stage with other talented bluegrass musicians and work to uplift an audience.
Wonderful. And then, do you have a favorite album or recording from your work?
Yes. I'm going to say I have two. One is my Christmas album that I did with the cast of In the Heat of the Night. It's called Christmas Time's A-Coming. And that project was such a labor of love for me because the men and women that I worked with on the show were family to me, and I was able to take them into the studio and help them reach some goals. They weren't of course, the actors, really were not vocationally singers, but many of them could sing, and we did some wonderful music that has continued over the last 30 years to touch people. In fact, as we speak, the album has went on to the charts, the global all-time holiday Christmas albums chart. It's currently at number 44, and that's 32 years after its original release. And so it's in there with some of the top albums in history globally in Christmas music. And so that's a big project because it was a labor of love for me. And we did it for a wonderful cause of encouraging youth and adults to choose to live a drug-free life, and that was what its original purpose was and what it continues to raise money to do. My second favorite album is one called Tunes and Tales from Tunnel Hill, which was a fun album that I recorded with some talented bluegrass musicians, which has just, to me, the wonderful feel of a comedy and bluegrass show that is just uplifting.
Wonderful. And do you have a favorite? Wait, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Do you have a favorite album or recording from your work?
Yeah, isn't that what we just covered?
Oh, yeah, sure did. So sorry about that. I'm
no
sorry.
Problem. I'll pick two more if you want.
Okay, it's okay. What was Carol O'Connor like to work with?
Oh, Carol. Carol was such a blessing to my life. Of course, he's featured in my Encouragers book series, and he appears on that Christmas album where I got to produce him on that. But from the first time I saw him in person, my first reaction was, wow, there's Archie Bunker, because I had grown up watching All in the Family, and I never envisioned from that moment that God would open the door for me to have Carol as a friend, as a mentor. I was able to become part of his extended family in that he treated me oftentimes like a son. From my perspective, we called him Pops, and so he was a fatherly figure for me at a time when I needed one. He gave me a great deal of advice and encouragement. As far as working with him day to day, he was jovial, he was uplifting, he tried to keep the set light when we were on the set, but at the same time, he was a very dedicated to his craft person, and he cared about what was written in the scripts. He cared about how we acted, what was put on the page. He cared about ultimately every aspect of the show. So he was a very dedicated producer, and in that, sometimes, his focus was totally on perfecting what he saw his vision of In the Heat of the Night to be. So I loved working with him. I learned so much from him, and I was blessed to have him in my life, and I miss him every day. Every time I'm in an acting situation, I think back and say, well, I wonder what Carol would say to that, or what advice he would give me in a particular situation. So, wonderful man.
Oh, it's wonderful. And then who was your favorite actor to work with?
That is an awfully tough question, because I've been blessed to work with so many outstanding, legendary actors through the years. Of course, mentioning Carol was wonderful to work with. But, I'm going to go from In the Heat of the Night to one of the movies that I did, which was a beautiful Hallmark Hall of Fame project. And I was able to work with William Hurt in that project, the late William Hurt. And it was a picture called The Flamingo Rising. It was a very small cast of, there were only a handful of us in the picture. But the scene that I got to play, he was so giving. In fact, it was my return. I had been off of CBS, from 1994 to 2001. So it was my return to CBS. They brought me back to do this cameo role, once again as a police officer on CBS, to play in the 50th anniversary Hallmark Hall of Fame. So it was such a pleasure. And he and the other cast were great to work with. But I fondly remember that time of getting to be with such an amazing actor and someone who was kind and giving. And so I'll claim him today as that my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much. And you give scholarships annually in your late parents' names. What brought that about?
Well, as I was coming up in Georgia, the way that I got into music was the dedication of my mother and father, who were not in the music business. They were business people and worked very hard at what they did. And at an early age, I suggested to them that I had an interest in playing music as professionally. And so with their work, we were able to quickly move me into a situation where I was performing. Circumstances of jam sessions at our house on Friday night eventually formed into a band, and that band began traveling, and we wound up at the Grand Ole Opry within a short span of time, guest starring there, and my parents were instrumental in that. And among that time frame, those first 7 years of my music career, we had over 25 youth that worked with us in that band. And the dedication I saw of my parents and those youth's parents, all investing in them and their hopes and dreams in the music industry, that stuck with me. And later, we've always tried to encourage young people through our shows, and anytime we had an opportunity to feature somebody who was trying to come up in the business, just like Bill Monroe and Jim Jesse and so many others, Cotton Carrier, had done for me as a youth. I've in turn tried to do the same to young people in my shows. But when my late mother was nearing the end, she suggested that, I take some of my time to create a scholarship that would encourage youth in Appalachian music. And we, as a matter of fact, used her homegoing service as the initial fundraiser for that scholarship. And it continues, thankfully, to grow each and every year. And we, although since the pandemic, we've not had any fundraisers, but we can always use additional funds, because just this year we've encouraged, we've got a young man going to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga who's a wonderfully talented piano player, Southern gospel piano player, and a drummer. We've got a young man who's an outstanding guitarist that's going to Chattanooga State, and we've got another young banjo player that we've taken on as a designated scholar as he's a junior in high school. We've got a young lady who's a fiddle player up in Indiana who we're supporting. So we've got a lot of young people who we're mentoring in their craft, no matter what their focus is going to be in their careers. We've got in our history of the scholarship fund for the Share America Foundation, which gives the Pearl and Floyd Franks Scholarship, we've got over 30 young people, and there are doctors and nurses and mechanical engineers and, dental hygienists and teachers. And, there's so many different vocations that they have wound up in through the years, but they all have that spark of music that they're continuing to share. And that's how it came about and why we continue to do it. It just, people invested in me, and my late mother knew that would be something that would be a great focus for my time and energies.
Yes, and then you chose to make your first fiction book a murder mystery, and why? Yes.
Let me backtrack just a second. For anybody who wants to donate to Share America Foundation, shareamericafoundation.org, you can find things you can donate there and be a part of that scholarship. And moving on to my murder mystery, which is a badge or an old guitar, which is, I've written, as you mentioned, 9 books. Most, all of the books have been nonfiction, but I wanted to do a project which looked at the story that I had written for a movie. And we actually started with the movie script, and we took the movie script and expanded into a novel. And it focuses on a small-town police officer in Georgia and the experiences he's going through and doing his job there. And he just sort of finds himself in a situation where he accidentally, he goes into his uncle's studio and records a song, and it becomes a hit. And next thing he knows, he's moving up the interest ladder in the big music city of Nashville. And when he's there, he gets embroiled in a murder mystery. And that's the basic gist of the story that we tell in that book. And that particular book has been so well received, and of course folks can find it at our randallfranks.com/store, and I'll autograph it for them if they want to get one of those. And of course, I hope someday we'll get to make it into a movie as well, because that was its original intent. But that's how it came about.
Excellent. Thank you. And then how did a fiddler from Appalachia wind up a Hollywood actor?
That is definitely a providential God thing, because I could have never imagined that little boy from Georgia getting an opportunity to be a network television star and to get to do movies. And When I was a little kid, there were two groups that inspired my desire to be on television more than anyone, and that was Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs from their appearances on the Beverly Hillbillies, and a group called the Dillards, who appeared as the Darlings on the Andy Griffith Show. And I remember telling my late parents that I want to do what they do. And so it took a number of years to get to that point that childhood dream was realized. But through the doors that opened in music, and then eventually when acting opportunities began to come to me because of the recognition that I had received in music, and there was an audience, so they saw me as someone who was a viable commodity, I guess, or a viable actor that they could put on television, and it would be some folks would watch. So let's put it that way. There were folks that cared about what I did, so they would watch when I went to television or on a movie, and that's sort of how it worked out. Now the doors opened for me, and literally, I'll share this short bit about In the Heat of the Night in particular. I had already done a film called Desperate for Love for CBS with Christian Slater and Brian Bloom as a singer. And that's about the same time that movie came out. In the Heat of the Night came on the air for its pilot season. And it was the first episode. I turned around, my late mom and I watched it, and I turned around at the end of it, and I said, if I'm ever going to be on television, it's going to be on this show. Mm-hmm. And I think that was my oral prayer, more or less. I wasn't saying it as a prayer, but I think God heard that, because from March of 1988 to August of 1988, he had motivated that the show, which was being filmed in Hammond, Louisiana, move locations from Hammond to Georgia, where I was at. So I didn't have to go to Hollywood. I didn't have to go to Louisiana. He moved the show. And then he precipitated a call to me from one of the casting people saying, I want you to go down to the show the first day of filming and be an extra on the show, because I feel like they're going to like you. There's nothing particular for you to do except just go be a townsperson in these scenes that they're filming that day. I said, okay. So 5 o'clock, I show up. I'm standing outside the wardrobe trailer, and a man walks by, looks me up and down, and says, you look an awful lot like a police officer. I said, thank you, and he went on his way. I didn't know who he was. And this was still like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was dark, outside. And so I'm standing there. And as the day progresses, they put me in my first scene with Carol O'Connor in what we call in the business a silent bit, where it's just me and him. And, he's, I'm doing something, so it looks like there's something going on between us. And of course, that opened my relationship with Carol. That was our first conversations, and that, off camera with that scene. And then over the next few weeks, they kept bringing me back and putting me with the different actors. And of course, that first day, I met everybody who was starring on the show. And a few weeks later, they came and said, well, we're going to add another police character to the show, and we want you to be it. So that didn't have anything to do for me with anything but God placing me there, opening those doors, putting the right people in the right place to say, this is the guy, we want him, and creating all of the open opportunities that then allowed me to spend thus the next 5 years on NBC and then CBS as Officer Randy Goode, and then all the movies and television shows and series that have come from those days since. It's just sort of a rolling snowball that keeps going downhill. And thankfully it's not hit bottom yet, and I still get the opportunity to do more with each passing year.
Yes, thank you so very much. I want you to know I was very nervous to have you on. I read your bio, and I do recall you from the heat of the night. My mother is a massive fan of the show, and
wonderful!
Yes, and so many
What's
are.
her name?
Just not my mother, Lynn Bryant.
Lynn Bryant. Well, hello, Lynn. Thank you for watching our show. I appreciate you so much, and you're very kind to make us part of your life.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I'm just so thrilled, and I want to thank you again. And I learned so much about you. I'm definitely going to check out Desperate for Love, you said, was that correct, with William Hurt? Is that the correct movie?
No. That movie
Which one was
The
it?
Flamingo Rising.
Oh, The Flamingo Rising. I apologize.
The Flamingo Rising.
The Flamingo Rising.
It's a Hallmark Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And it still should be available somewhere on a Hallmark channel or in the Hallmark system. Wonderful film with Brian Bendon and Elizabeth McGovern from Downton Abbey now. I love Elizabeth, so yeah.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. And then also, where could our listeners receive an autographed book again? I think you had mentioned it.
Yes, you can go to randallfranks.com/store, and you can order any of our Encourager series or the Murder Mystery. We've also got our Appalachian Mountain Pearl book, which is stories of my mother and my grandparents in Appalachia. So any of those, and there are more books available through Amazon as well, and you can find the Randall Franks page on Amazon. But come to my site because I'll autograph them for you.
Randallfranks.com. Randallfranks.com. Okay. Yes, and I left the link in the description of the show as well, and I will add shareamerica.org. Okay.
ShareAmericaFoundation.org.
ShareAmericaFoundation.org. Okay. Thank you so much, Randall. And also, I just want you to know, I love your accent. It is just so soothing and beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to say
goodbye. It's been my pleasure to be with you, Camille.
Oh, thank you, Randall. Pleasure for me as well. I'm just ecstatic. So goodbye for now, and take care, okay?
I'll do my very best. And folks can find me anywhere on almost every social media site if they want to follow or subscribe. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay. All right, everyone. That was the wonderful Randall Franks. And again, you can go to Randall, RANDALL, Franks, FRANKS.com. Okay, and there you can find photos and all kind of wonderful things or aspects of Randall's career. All right, there's a store and his latest releases because he is a musician. Okay, so it was such a pleasure having Mr. Franks on, and thank you all for listening, and I hope you have very happy holidays. Goodbye.